Well, some of these are laughable, and some of these are just plain such bad advice that they've hurt deer and deer hunting opportunities, deer hunters, and deer hunting opportunities for decades, if not longer. So it's pretty serious. On this channel, I try to offer good advice, the best of my knowledge. I never push bad or good advice away, and I never shy away from sharing bad advice and how it might potentially hurt you. And so I came up with some top 5 bad deer advice points, and we have a bonus down here that's maybe in the less serious category, but wait around for that one to see that. But the first one, and I believe firmly this has hurt more deer hunters than just about any piece of bad advice for deer hunters out there, that you can't shoot more deer sitting on the couch. You can't shoot deer sitting on the couch. Well, obviously you have to leave your house, unless you're a poacher shooting out the window, to actually go hunt and go in the woods and find a deer. But the implication is that the more time you spend in your stand, the more successful that you're going to be, and that just couldn't be further from the truth. And I think that's probably, it's probably caused some divorces. It's probably caused some people to actually give up on hunting because they think that they need to spend every waking minute to find consistent success in the deer woods. They need to be out there every chance you can get because obviously you can't shoot more deer if you're sitting on the couch. And that is something that I'm trying to change. I've been trying to change for 12, 14 years when I've been talking about that you hunt the weather, you hunt quality days. I had a conversation with a friend the other day where we talked about when we did go hunting in the past. I would drive 7 hours from the UP of Michigan to hunt 2 mornings and 1 evening. I would get there on a Wednesday night, Thursday morning, literally at 3 in the morning, because I'd wait till after the family went to bed, after I'd worked a full day, and then I'd drive 6 or 7 hours, sleep for a half hour in the truck, and then go hit the woods because I wanted to maximize my time afield. Even though I was a self-employed real estate appraiser at that time in the 2000s, and I could kind of make my schedule a little bit, but I couldn't go away for more than 3 or 4 days, I wanted to make sure I wasn't taking a day off just to travel. So I'd get here in the morning, hunt that morning, hunt that evening, maybe crash in a motel for 1 night. I'd hunt the next morning, and then I'd drive home that afternoon, and if it was a good evening hunt, I'd probably stick around for the evening, and I would definitely leave after that evening hunt, get home at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, sleep on the way somewhere in the truck. And I wanted to maximize my time afield, and that's what I had to do with a young family and with a career in business and work and trying to just manage it all. So I learned quickly back in the 90s that my success rate went through the roof when I actually concentrated on the best days to hunt instead of as many days as I could. You hear often that quality is worth more than quantity, and that couldn't be more true when it comes to deer hunting and finding consistent success. I could go over my own stats. I average about 1 mature buck opportunity for every 6 sits. This year I've been even more diligent with my time. We shoot a lot of videos, 208 that we'll put out this year. We're right on track for that. I still want to finish my next book, which would be my 6th book. We want to complete at least another web class before next spring, maybe another web class after that before next fall. And by the way, I went to 125 clients in 10 months. So I'm real busy. I need to maximize my time, even if I can choose to hunt whatever I want. You burn stands out, you burn family out, you burn your boss out, you burn your land out by hunting too much. If you really want to spend time outdoors, go grouse hunting, go for a hike, go fishing. There's some awesome walleye fishing in the fall. Pike fishing for pike, northern pike. Bass fishing, there's some really good fishing that heats up during the fall. And a lot of times those worst days to hunt are those best days to fish. So you think about it that way. You can shoot more deer by sitting on the couch. We need to hit that over and over again because it'll help you become a better hunter, a more successful hunter, a more consistently successful hunter as the decades go by and the years go by. And you can teach that to your kids and kind of reverse this trend of, and I could say probably that number 1 right there is the worst piece of deer advice that there's ever been. Number 2, forget the wind, just hunt. You ever heard that? Whatever product's selling that, if they tell you that, run like the wind. You have to pay attention to the wind. That is the number 1 form of hunting. finding where deer move, find out how you can get into that location without spooking those deer, and then make sure your scent is blowing away from that movement. If it's blowing towards that movement, no matter what product you're using, you're going to lose far, far more often than you win. And most of the time when you win, the wind was swirling, it was rising with thermals, it was going down in the evening with thermals, and you really didn't fool their nose. You just didn't realize that your scent wasn't going exactly towards that deer. You can't forget the wind when you hunt, just like you can't forget the noise you make. You can't forget showing yourself to a deer on the way to the stand when they're in a bedding area and you're walking on a hillside and they can see you broad as daylight. Walk on the other side of the ridge. Make sure you're hiding yourself, but you have to hide your scent. And the best form of scent control is stand location. You locate your stand so that there's a very low probability that deer are going to be in your downwind area. If you have private land, you change the habitat improvements, you make travel corridors, you connect bedding areas to feeding, bedding to bedding, bedding to water holes, you add water hole sweeteners, mock scrape sweeteners, so you reinforce that line of movement. There's always a way to make sure on private land that you can manipulate the habitat in a small area, or on public land that you learn how to read the habitat so that you can find defined movements within funnels and constrictions on that public land so that you're throwing your scent away from that constriction. That's a great thing about finding funnels and connections of habitat and travel corridors naturally out in public land, because the stronger that line of movement that you find and you discover and you scout, the more that you can control your scent. When you control your scent, then you truly can forget about the wind, because you've already taken care of your scent and which way the wind's blowing with proper stand placement months in advance before you even set foot in the woods. Then it just is a matter of watching HuntCast through the HuntWise app, knowing which way your wind's going, and going and hunt. Moonisms. Long ago, pretty interesting debate article with the late Charles Alsheimer and John Azoga, Deer and Deer Hunting. And let's say this was 2001. I'm not really sure the exact date, around 2000. And I had the privilege of being able to sit in John Azoga's kitchen, talk to him, living room, and discuss these things. But they had hundreds, if not thousands, of does that they'd ultrasounded over a 20-year period, car deer killed, or 25-year period, and they could go back to the exact date of conception. The other belief was that the moon caused the rut, and certain moons made the rut start earlier or later. And science has shown, and science can lie, science can lead you astray, but it's pretty easy when you look at the gestation rate and you actually count back to the date of conception, just like they do with humans, babies, and you can figure out the exact date of conception. That's pretty black and white and foolproof. There's nothing that's going to be wrong with that. The moon is not. When the moon hits it right is when it falls in the traditional rutting periods that take place at the same time every single year. Follow the moon for the rut, follow the moon for your hunting is very, very poor advice. Why is that? Because if it's a 90-degree day on November 6th with 30-mile-an-hour wind in central Indiana, it's going to be a bad day to hunt no matter what the moon prediction is. On the flip side, if it's central Indiana and the temperature is a high of 37 on November 6th, it just dropped from 52, a major storm front went through, the winds are now moderated, the conditions of extreme weather have moderated, and it's November 6th, it's going to be an outstanding day to hunt on that date with those weather conditions, even if the moon is a, quote, bad day. Weather and the conditions of weather, extremity of weather, temperature change, wind speed change, that's what actually affects deer movement, not the moon. Weather and the extremities always trump the moon. Moon might be 1% of it, but we don't pay attention to 1%, and you shouldn't either. Number 4, bucks have a 3-mile home range. It's almost a defeatist attitude. Bucks might over a year. They go to this yarding area. They go to this fall range, this summer range. Fall and summer ranges for bucks are often 1.5 miles apart. But when you just look at the fall daylight activity, that's all you need to be concerned about, fall daylight activity. Because bucks will stay in a very small home range during the daylight hours that can expand greatly after dark. You can't hunt them after dark, you can't manage them after dark, you don't manage 4 deer after dark if you're doing it right. You're not trying to create a nocturnal herd. A mature buck's daylight movement, 90% of an entire 4-month hunting season, if they're staying in that fall range, is going to be 200 to 500 yards. in most locations. In big wilderness public land, that might be 3/4 of a mile to a mile. It really expands because they have the option of a lot of available cover that they can move about freely. And doe group, family groups are scattered, food sources are probably scattered, so they're going to move a little bit more. But when you get to small parcel, big ag land, deer will move 100 to 200 yards during the daylight, even if they have a 3-mile home range at night. The 3-mile home range, you'd never build a property on that. You'd never hunt like that. What we find instead, and I find with clients, and again, I've worked with over 1,000 clients in 26 states since 2005, talk to clients about everything under the sun, whether it's family, whether it's a deer herd, whether it's traditional deer movements on their land, how food plots affect the movement, what kind of food plots they planted. And what you find is that daylight movement is very consistent depending on the region. They don't move a long ways during the daylight, and that's a good thing. Because then when you shoot one buck, you might even have another one come in and take that spot. You can find that you can manage mature bucks with just 30, 40 acres. Yeah, you could have neighbors all around. If you have a lot of 30 and 40 acres put together and lots of hunting camps like some area in Michigan, it's going to be tough. But when you get in just traditional, average deer hunting land across the country, a 40-acre parcel can be extremely more powerful than most people think. You have to ignore some of the science on deer movement, especially as it relates to daylight versus nocturnal activity. And if you do that, you're going to find that you can be a lot more consistent, successful hunter. Because why? Because you're actually planning for that daylight movement. You're setting your stands for that daylight movement. You're not considering that they move 3 miles after dark, because that shouldn't be in your plans. You'll be a lot more successful deer hunter if you only concentrate on the science of daylight movement. Unfortunately, it doesn't break it down, so you have to gain experience, gain from other people's experience. And if you ignore that 3-mile home range, advice and just head to the woods and understand that you're hunting daylight movement, you'll be a better hunter this fall. Now, number 5, deer can't see. Well, of course they can see. But there's a thought out there and advice that deer can't see shades of red or green. So we have these red lenses and green lenses on flashlights. And it's pretty crazy because I always look at extremes and I always look at examples. And just about anybody that's a deer hunter and spent any time with cameras more than a few years, trail cameras, if you used infrared bulb cameras where they have the glowing red lights, everyone out there has had a mature buck that comes into that, stares at it, and it's the only picture you ever get. Now, if you have it on video mode and those little red bulbs are staying on and glowing for 15 seconds or 20 seconds, wow. Trail cameras aren't spooking deer. It's those red lenses. So when you're using low glow, like on the Exodus trail cameras we use, or blackout cameras, you eliminate that. And it's pretty interesting. We've had some cameras located in poor locations. I think one was on a stump. I didn't even think it stuck out very much at all. Interesting, every deer that walked by there during the day would look at that camera. It was right at their eye level. And it was just located poorly. The camera stuck out. It was profiled. You could see it from the side. And we had a couple mature bucks that walked by on that particular 2-track, and we never saw them again. Every doe that walked by would look at it. Every fawn that followed the doe would look at it. But the interesting factor is at night, none of them looked at it. Because it was a blackout camera, they didn't look at it, they couldn't hear it, they couldn't smell it. And if you have those infrared glowing bulbs, they will see it. You will spook deer, and never think that you have this big giant headlamp that you could land a plane with, and that somehow deer can't see it because it has a green lens on it, or because it has a red lens on it. I do believe in low glow lights. I use flashlights. I used a flashlight opening day of gun season in Wisconsin. I walked all the way up to my stand location, and then it gets really brushy. And I knew that at that point, if there's any deer within 50 yards, they're 100 yards, they're gone. I would have spooked them. I didn't want to make loud crashing noises and breaking sticks, so I used a flashlight the last 50 yards to get to the stand because I had to go off trail up through the woods. And that kept me from spooking deer long distance because I was avoiding making those crashing noise and breaking sticks. And that really sticks out to deer, where I use just a typical light to go up there. And I do use lights, but I just try to be very careful. I love the half lumens moon glow light where you can just shine it at the ground, that mag light where you can cover half of it with your thumb and put it on the ground. And deer can see shades of red and green, or they wouldn't stare at infrared red bulb cameras after dark and never reappear again. Bonus, this right here, this is something that I do hit often and I talk about, but this is something that I firmly believe in. When it comes to deer hunting, just go ahead and pee. Pee in the woods, peeing from your stand. It all turns into that scent that deer won't recognize a human scent or a human person actually urinated in that location. Don't have to worry about that. That's an old wives' tale. Get rid of those nasty pee buckets or pee jugs. We had a video in the past where he talked about that and that nasty pee jug sitting in the redneck. And you know, there's sometimes you can't get out of the blind. I've seen some pretty elaborate urinal systems that are in a blind that have a tube that goes down into a hole, and 55-gallon drum with some rocks in it, poor man septic. And you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You're typically not going to open the door and just go outside in the open. But bottom line is, you don't need to worry about it. It really is an old wives' tale. And right here, this is some bad deer advice. I know I've fallen for it in the past. I know probably you have. But again, it goes back to, not only do I want to offer the best advice that you can take to the deer woods and actually find success and consistent success each fall, I really want to hone in on that bad advice and that bad information and those mistakes hunters make. Someone made a comment just last night on a video that they like learning from mistakes because that's how you actually learn, from other people's mistakes. But if you never have success, then no one could ever model that success based on mistakes of someone else or themselves in the past. You have to find success. That's no different than a Major League Baseball player batting 100 and doing it consistently. No one's ever going to listen to them just because they make a mistake 9 times out of 10 they go to the plate. They're going to listen to that person that finds success 3 out of 10, 3.5 out of 10 every time they go to the plate. That's the person you want to listen to, not that person that's made so many mistakes they've never found success. This channel is about helping you find success. I hope you're not falling victim to this bad deer advice this year. And if you are, it's never too late to change. Hope you have a great hunt. There's still a lot left the rest of the season, and hopefully for decades beyond that you become a better hunter each fall. Well, if you made it to the end of this video, you're obviously interested in whitetail habitat solutions, what I have to teach, and you will love my new web class series. The first one is how to design your whitetail property. It's out now. The link is in the description. I invite you to check it out. It's on my website. Can't wait to hear about it.